Hi friends, and welcome back to Gardening Suburbia. My name is Amanda and today we are going to make some delicious hot sauce. So I have a whole bunch of Tabasco peppers, pimento peppers, poblanos, I've got some bell peppers, I've got some habanadas. I've got a whole array of peppers that came out of the garden. I pretty much picked everything off that was ready to come off. Plus a few that aren't, just because it is going to be getting down to about 35 degrees tonight, and pretty much all of the summer crops are going to be dying back. So because of that, I figured I might as well go ahead and make some delicious hot sauce. I've never made hot sauce before, but I'm going to go ahead and do the way that involves fermenting the peppers. So I have a whole bunch of peppers. I got a half-gallon bowl jar that I'm going to be doing this experiment in, and let's go ahead and start getting these guys prepped for fermenting. So the recipe that I'm going to be following is off of Chili Pepper Madness. I'm doing the fermented Tabasco sauce. There's also an option for non-fermented Tabasco sauce, which I'll go ahead and link this down below. So I need about 5 ounces of Tabasco peppers. I'm really not sure how many I have in this jar. There are a variety of ripened and not ripened, and then I also have some other peppers in here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start getting these prepped, taking off the stems. I'm gonna leave all the seeds, and then we'll go ahead and weigh this out. I'll also make sure to remove any bug spots on them, because I know that there are a few that have little bug holes on them. So I'll remove any of the damaged parts, and we'll just see what we get. So this is going to be a day of experiments. I have a whole bunch of peppers that have been in my freezer from the summer that I didn't quite get to. I have a few that are from my garden and a few that came from my sister's garden. I'm going to go ahead and toss these in a bowl with some lukewarm water and let them thaw out. And the research that I did, I found someone that says that it works. Since I'm going to be making this into a hot sauce, the overall structure and like texture of the peppers doesn't really matter to me too much, just because I am going to be blending them up. If you were to go ahead and want these to be like fresh eating peppers where they have that thick crunch to them, frozen peppers definitely aren't going to have that. They're good for throwing in dishes that are going to be cooked. As with most things that go in the freezer, they kind of change their structure. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw, I think I have about 4 bags of frozen peppers that need to be thawed out. These are gonna be thawed in some lukewarm water for about 30 minutes, and I'm gonna keep chopping on my other fresh peppers. All right, friends, so all of our peppers have been chopped, and I have a giant array of peppers, so this is probably no longer going to be considered just a Tabasco pepper hot sauce, just because there's everything else under the sun in this. So we're gonna go ahead and see how many peppers we have and a weight, because the recipe I think was 5 ounces, if not 6 ounces, and I have a feeling that this is gonna be way more than that. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and put this in ounces, and then we're gonna tear out the weight of the jar. And then we're gonna just start adding peppers. And I just took the stems off of these guys. I did not de-seed them, just because I do really want this to be a hot sauce more than just, like I want it to be spicy. All right, so there's 5 ounces exactly. So I definitely can fit more in my jar, so I'm going to. If I could fit all of these peppers in there, that'd be awesome. If not, I'll go ahead and use a smaller, like quart-sized jar to do the rest. All right, so we got about 11 ounces. So that's about double, which is perfect. So we got double a recipe and we've got 5 times a recipe. Okay, so for the next step, we need to get our brine together. So for these guys, we need to make sure that we're leaving at least 1 inch of headspace, which both of these have more than enough headspace. But we're gonna go ahead and make that brine. So for the brine, it says to use 1 quart of water, which is 4 cups, with 3 tablespoons of sea salt. So I have some sea salt here. I'm gonna go get some water. It does not need to be hot, but lukewarm, like room temperature water is perfectly fine. So I'm gonna go get that water, put some 3 tablespoons of that salt, and then we'll mix up our quart-sized jar first. So I'm just gonna go ahead and remove any of the air bubbles. Whoops. And I'm actually gonna go grab some leaves of cabbage, and I'm just gonna go ahead and lay the cabbage on top of this just to push the veggies down. So in this salt water, I'm just gonna go ahead and throw this in. This is actually kale. And I'm going to go ahead and double layer it. So for these guys, I am just gonna go ahead and layer this in, and the main goal is to keep all of the peppers submerged. So I'm going to go ahead and layer another one in. Alright, so I think that's as good as I'm going to get it. I'm just going to go ahead and skim off all of the seeds that are on the top. That way there's nothing that's going to create any kind of environment for mold to grow. All right, let's go ahead and skim off all the seeds. We're just gonna loosely put these lids on because they're going to be letting go of a bunch of gases, and I do not want them to explode. So this is the first step in our brine. These guys are just going to sit in these jars for 1 to 2 weeks is the prime time. You really want to keep these guys between 55 and 75 degrees with no direct sunlight. So I think my plan is I'm gonna leave these on my counter with a towel over them. That way they're not getting direct sunlight, but at the same time, they're not out of sight for me, so I can go ahead and keep checking on them. So I will see you guys back here in about a week or 2. I'll keep you posted. Hi friends, so it has been about 2 weeks since we started our hot sauce fermenting project. I just kind of want to restate that I've never done this before, so this isn't really exactly a how-to or a guide, but more of like come along with me as I try to make hot sauce. I did find some growth on top of both of my fermentation jars, and I went ahead and I did some research. It's not really fuzzy, and it looks most similar to calm yeast. I'll go ahead and put that on the screen. But it is a non-toxic yeast formation. It's a biofilm, and it's safe. So before I go ahead and actually start getting this prepped for actually making the hot sauce, I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of scoop that top layer off. It says that it can slightly change the flavor of the hot sauce. I'm not gonna worry too much about that. We'll see how it turns out. I'm not even sure, even if this hadn't happened, I don't know that my hot sauce would have been, you know, top game hot sauce. So it's all an experiment and a learning curve. I'm gonna go ahead and quickly slice up a white onion to put in this. When I initially made this mixture, I was gonna put white onion, but then realized I didn't have any on hand. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add it in now. I'm probably only gonna do about half of an onion. Yeah. I'm gonna do this really thin. We have about 7 times the recipe, and so for each recipe called for 1 cup of white wine vinegar. I do not have white wine vinegar. I had about a half cup of red wine vinegar, and I have just regular distilled white vinegar. So I'm going to use this because this is what I have on hand, and I don't really want to go to the grocery store. So we're going to go ahead and do 7 cups of vinegar total. So there we have 4 cups of vinegar. I'm gonna add this in. Boyfriend is going to be mad because it's gonna smell like vinegar in here in about a minute. But there's 4 cups, and then we need another 3. This recipe calls that you can go ahead and just throw the peppers and the brine and all into the pot with the vinegar, and I think that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to just let it cook down quite a bit just so that it can thicken up just a slight. So I'm going to go ahead and add these guys in. And I'm going to go ahead and remove the cabbage leaves that I used, I don't really want those in my hot sauce anymore. Plus they didn't really work too well with me, for me. They did not keep all of my things down below the surface. Definitely smells spicy. So I'm gonna go ahead and add in my onions right now. I wish I would have had these for when I fermented, but that is perfectly okay. I'm gonna go ahead and give these a good stir. So this calls for about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. It calls for a 1/4 teaspoon of salt if you don't use the brine. Since I used the brine, I'm not going to add salt just because I know there's quite a bit of salt in there already. I think I'm actually going to add just a little bit of honey. I think so it is super spicy. So I'm going to actually add a little bit of honey because I think it'll give a nice counterbalance to the salt content in here. Plus with the spicy, the sweet's going to be good. My friend Megan does honey, and she goes around and helps different families set up colonies of bees, and then she helps them learn about how to maintain the hive and whatnot, and then she also collects honey to sell products on her online store. She was kind enough to give me a bottle of her honey. I believe this is her spring honey. Yeah, just because it is really light. You can see it has a darker color for the summer honey. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use this spring honey that she gifted to me, and I'm probably gonna put about 2 to 3 tablespoons. And then give that a good mix. And I do have this on a medium-high heat, just because I do want to bring it to a boil. And then once it gets to a boil, we're going to put this on a simmer, and then just let it reduce some. I went ahead and I actually allowed this to boil for about an hour to about an hour and a half, so that it would really reduce a lot of the water, just because I don't want it to be too watery. The next step is to actually toss this into my food processor. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this in batches just because I don't think this amount is gonna all fit in my food processor at one time. And then we're gonna go ahead and strain out the seeds and any bulkier pieces so that we get a smooth hot sauce. For this next step, I'm actually gonna go ahead and restrain the hot sauce into my pot that I used originally. I have a sieve, and I'm just gonna go ahead and pour this in and use a rubber spatula just to kind of like mash it into the sieve, making sure that we're leaving just the really big pieces behind in this portion. I'm gonna start by pouring some through here. Just kind of working it through the screen. And I think what I'm gonna do with the extra is dehydrate this pulp. And then I can use this as like a hot pepper, red pepper flake type thing. So I'm just gonna keep doing this with the rest of the batch, and then I might do it just one more time, and then we'll be ready to pour these into jars. I double strained our hot sauce, and I went ahead and I let it simmer on the stove for about another 30 to 45 minutes just so that it could really thicken up a little bit more, just because it was really watery. Right now I have it in kind of like an ice bath. So this first big bowl has ice and some cold water, and then I have our hot sauce in a smaller bowl inside of that. It has cooled off substantially, and I'm gonna go ahead and get ready to bottle these up. I have an old hot sauce bottle that I washed really well. It's just stained from the red sauce, but it's perfectly clean. I think I'm gonna reuse that. I did buy some of these guys, but the only thing is that when I went to water test them, they kind of squirted water out of the cap. So I think it's just because they're kind of cheap. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to use this one first and then resort to these other ones as last. Our hot sauce is very hot. As you can see, it's super thick, which is good. It's not like super thick, but like not watery. It's a good consistency for a hot sauce, I think. I can't really explain exactly what it tastes like just because I've never really had anything that quite tastes like this. And I believe that's because it was fermented. We really don't, or at least I've never really had many fermented foods. Even pickles aren't really even fermented like they were in the past with that saltwater brine. Now they're just pickled with acids like vinegar and whatnot. It's got a real weird like smoky type flavor. Again, I can't really place it, but it's really good. It's not the exact same color as like a Tabasco sauce, just because a lot of those peppers were green. But I think it's a good comparison. I'm gonna go ahead and transfer this to something that has a spout on it, just because I don't really have a funnel that is that small. Start by bottling with this guy. This was just a hot sauce that I had bought at the store, but is now going to be for my hot sauce. Just gonna add my caps, clean off the bottles. And there we have two perfectly made things of hot sauce, kind of Tabasco-y, kind of some other peppers. End of season pepper hot sauce, we'll say. I'll put some of my other videos up here so you guys can go ahead and enjoy those between now and my next upload. But I will see you guys next time. Until then, thank you, and I'll see you guys later.